Welcome to The Blade Job. I'm James Trainer. I'm joined today with
the high voltage Scott Perkins.
I'm Tommy Collins.
Guys, we made it to 2 episodes, 50% more episodes or something.
Twice as many.
Number 2.
Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/TheBladeJob. Follow us on Twitter @TheBladeJobShow.
High voltage 1987.
At Blade Job Collins.
It's on YouTube right now. Hopefully, maybe that's where you're listening to it. Maybe we've gotten off our asses and we have an RSS feed set up and you can listen to it on all of your favorite podcasting apps. We'll find out. But enjoy episode 2. We talked about, is this the greatest time to be a professional wrestling fan? I really enjoyed our conversation. We brought up a lot of good points. I think that, yes, this is an awesome time to be a professional wrestling fan.
It was a good discussion. We talked about a lot.
I believe the fact that I don't have a beard was brought up.
If it wasn't, he can't grow a beard. That's true.
It's just sad. So, enjoy the episode. If you haven't already, check out episode 1. We have an amazing discussion on women's wrestling. Let's do it.
Let's get out of here.
Let's go.
When did you start watching wrestling?
Like, in total?
Like in your life?
In my life, I remember just being very, very little. I don't know, like maybe 4 or 5. Because I remember I used to think The Undertaker drove the monster truck Gravedigger. Because it just fucking made sense. I assumed that The Undertaker drove Gravedigger. I'm still not sure he doesn't. Kenny Anderson drives Gravedigger, if anyone's wondering. It's not Mark Calloway.
I don't know who that is.
He's the driver of Gravedigger.
Okay.
Yeah. And not Undertaker.
That's Mark Calloway.
That's Mark Calloway.
Tommy, what about you?
Well, I grew up mostly in Georgia and North Carolina, so it was really heavy on WCW down there.
Nerd.
I heard that.
Yeah.
You know.
So when I was a little kid, that's what it was. So I don't know, maybe 7, 8-ish around that time, elementary school, WCW.
Yeah, I was probably about the same age, like, you know, 5, 6 years old, you know, watching WCW up here when it was on TBS. I think it was Saturday night. It was WCW Saturday Night Main Event. No, that was
I think it was just called WCW Saturday Night.
And then there was WWF Saturday Night Main Event, which I think was late 80s is when that went off the air for the first time. And, you know, then
we'll check with our producer.
Yeah, and then in the early 90s, you know, obviously with Raw going on the air, you know, that's my earliest real memories were classic WCW. And then eventually WWF Raw when that debuted in 93, you know, and I got really big into it, you know, full time when most of us did, and that was during the Monday Night Wars when Nitro.
King of the Ring 1996, I believe, is when everybody got into it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of us, I think a lot of wrestling fans in general, you know, at least in our age group, and we'll say like, you know, you're 18 to 35 or whatever it is, you know, a lot of people remember, you know, the Monday Night Wars, the Attitude Era, and that was kind of like
the first memory.
And that was the time when professional wrestling was at its biggest.
That's when I really was into it.
And I mean, I remember I couldn't go to school. You know, everyone in school had an Austin shirt or a Rock shirt or a DX shirt or, you know, Goldberg or Sting or Jericho, you know, all of these things, you know, in the late 90s.
big.
NWO was the biggest fucking thing that had ever
Wolfpack,
happened.
baby.
Yeah, Wolfpack was way cooler than White NWO.
They were the good NWO, the good bad guys.
88.
88 is when Main Event went off the air.
Thank you.
So yeah.
That was our producer.
Trash can.
He's
Trash
a trash
can.
can.
And then
Jeff Jarrett.
so a lot of people in our age group will see the glory days of professional wrestling being that time when WCW and WWF were going head to head. ECW was creeping up in the background.
That's when ECW like 97 to 99 was when ECW was. That's when it got popular enough to be on regular TV.
The Nashville Network.
TNN. Yep, that's what it was. They were on TNN, but they were still fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, they didn't give a shit.
Which was awesome.
We'll just do a whole episode about
And-
Paul Heyman
Yeah,
at some point.
Like, we can do like 5 episodes about Paul.
Off air, we were talking
Paulie
how he is
Dangerously.
the greatest wrestling mind of all time. But again, we could do episodes on that. But
That's not this episode though.
that is not this episode.
So going back to that question though, you know, a lot of us, that was the glory days of professional wrestling.
Yes.
Yep.
Are we currently experiencing the best era of wrestling? And now I am not saying WWE, because WWE is definitely back into one of their transitional periods where they're not quite sure. Are they TV PG? Are they trying to push it a little bit? We've seen a little more blood go unattended to. We've seen a little more foul language, a little more sexual content. You know, but all of a sudden, in the past 3, 4, 5 years, we have access to wrestling from all over the world. We have access to New Japan in America now. We have access to these independent promotions who don't care that they don't have $10 million to put on each show. They still go out and put on the best professional wrestling on the planet. We have stars who have never stepped foot in the WWE, who even more casual fans will go, oh yeah, I've heard about that guy. Are we experiencing the next big moment in professional wrestling right now?
I don't know if I would call it the next big moment, as far as like the Attitude Era was that big moment. That's kind of how, if you look on a timeline, that's when it was. I think we're in a great moment. I don't know how I'd classify it to like pin it down, what to group it as, but I think what makes it great is, you know, you have all these streaming services, just that internet, the connectivity throughout the world, where you can see all these great matches from all these independent promotions throughout the world and just watch great match after great match, and you're not just confined to one local area, and maybe those local promotions aren't that great at the time, but you can still go find great matches.
I actually posted on Twitter
Check it out.
recently at the Blade Job show.
What?
Yeah. That I think I've spent more time watching my Powerbomb.tv subscription than I have my WWE Network subscription. Just because I have access, like, I've seen the Roman Reigns saga. I've seen the Brock Lesnar saga.
There's nothing. There's nothing different.
I've been seeing Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar be in each other's vicinity since before WrestleMania 31.
Right.
But I haven't had a lot of time to see, I don't know, Grand Slam wrestling out of Pittsburgh or Old Forge, Pennsylvania. I haven't had a lot of time to see, you know, some of the smaller Mexican promotions. I haven't had a lot of time to see what's going on in C4 out of Calgary, I believe. You know, I don't know some of these guys because they don't wrestle the Northeast as much. They're not on television. I feel like I'm watching wrestling for the first time again because I'm seeing all of these faces that I've never seen before, and I'm getting invested in their characters.
And I think that's what makes this a great era for wrestling is because you have access to all that and more exposure to all of these.
Yeah, it's nuts because I think it was last weekend, or whenever it was, the G1 Climax finals was...
Could have been many weekends depending on when this comes out.
This is of 2017.
Right, the G1 Climax 27. Whatever weekend the finals were, I sat at my dining room table on my laptop and I watched the G1 final. I watched WCPW Loaded. I watched a few matches from a Beyond Wrestling, and it's like that's 3 different continents that I watched wrestling from, and I'm sure I watched WrestleMania 25 because that's what I do most weekends. But
is that the one that went Hollywood?
No, that was the first Undertaker Shawn Michaels.
Oh shit!
The one that was just like batshit crazy, and then
Yeah.
it was like John Cena, Edge, and the Big Show after that, and who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But it just I watched wrestling from 3 different continents, all in the same day, and it's 10 years ago. You think about it. I think I first saw a YouTube video like 10 years ago, and it was just like Tony Hawk skateboarding, which is radical, man. But it's like 10 years ago was when you couldn't really do that. You couldn't say, oh cool, I want to watch Mexican wrestling. Like I'm sure you could, but it wouldn't be you could watch a handful of matches and they might not be current. But now it's to the point where if I want to watch a match from last weekend or 15 years ago, I can probably find it, and it's pretty crazy. And I can also just you can also follow wrestlers on Twitter and Instagram and see what their lives are like. Braun Strowman, he's the biggest, scariest dude in the ring, but then it's like if you follow him on Instagram, he's just like a big sweetheart and likes to interact with his fans, and he might be a big scary guy, but he's actually a very nice guy.
That's a great thing that I am seeing about social media is I'm building this entire show off of going on Twitter and interacting with these wrestlers and interacting with these promoters and just like forming relationships, to the point where you go to a show and you meet this person and it's like, hey, yeah, no, we talked on Twitter. Cool. It's good to meet you in person, and that's this really, really cool situation where for so many years, like even going back to the Attitude Era, the glory days, for our generation, where kayfabe was still a very big part of their industry. Triple H was an asshole on TV. Triple H was going to be an asshole if you ran into him on the street. Yeah, right. He might stop and take a photo with you.
But he
might sign an autograph, but he's going to keep his character going one way or the other.
Right.
We've talked about it in the past. We've got Warbeard Hansen, who's been a staple of New England wrestling for years. And I remember, seeing him wrestle for XWA and seeing him wrestle for Chaotic Wrestling and seeing him wrestle for Beyond Wrestling. And then I finally got the chance to meet him last year or the year before.
At some point?
I feel like it was last year. Yeah, Cody Rhodes was already back on the indies, so it was last year. And he was completely different. Oh, I'm sorry. No, what happened was I listened to Colt Cabana, his interview with Warbeard, because I was like, oh, Warbeard, I've seen this guy wrestle. This guy's a monster. This guy's, he crushes people, and he's so athletic and agile for a big dude. Dude's like 300 pounds. He can do fucking cartwheels and shit. This is awesome. And then I start really listening to the interview, and he's soft-spoken. He's eloquent. He's just, and I know it's a character. I know it's all smoke and mirrors, but like all of a sudden I was like, wow, like he's very soft-spoken. And then I go and I finally meet him and I'm talking to him, and he's very appreciative of his fans. He's nothing like he is portrayed in War Machine. He's this really nice dude. And and it was just kind of like, wow, this is cool. We get to interact with professional wrestlers now, and we get to see them as the people that they really are. And I think that's one of the best things about this little moment. Professional wrestling's been around since the late 1800s, I think, when it was a carnival sideshow, and in its 100+ years of existing, this is one of the first times where we as fans and we as non-competing professionals trying to make our way in this industry, we get to experience them as people and not as performers. And I think that's really, really cool.
It's a big transition, definitely, is from being on those different levels to bringing it to an equal platform. Because even on the independent scene, the wrestlers they'd still appreciate the fans, but it was still at like a different level. But like you were saying, reaching out on Twitter, on Instagram, talk, just that direct connection with these wrestlers. Even just hey, I saw you wrestle, that was great, and them responding, thank you, that kind of evens out that playing field. Maybe not playing field, but just puts it on that same level.
Who's a yeah, this is gonna sound weird, and I hope I don't offend him by saying it.
You will.
You know who's a fucking sweetheart?
Who?
Matt Tremont.
Really?
And that is a dude who you would not think is a nice dude. Like, He is a monster. I've seen him more than once covered in barbed wire and thumbtacks, and he's just a nice dude, super appreciative of his fans, always saying great things, always retweeting, always responding to fans' questions on Twitter. Really, really good stuff. Now, it just, it is what it is. It's great that we get to, you can almost form a relationship with some of these people. You see them at show after show after show, and they start, you start recognizing you, and you start, learning more about them, and you get to interact with them. And I just think that's, it's super cool. And I completely lost my train of thought of the thing that I was going to say. So back then, in the territory days, kayfabe was still, like I said, with WWF during the Attitude Era, kayfabe was super important during the territory days, because back then it was still real. The curtain hadn't been lifted to the general population that this was a performance, that this was
right,
an athletic dance between two individuals.
Right. It was, regarded the same, same level as like boxing. It was a real fight. And now, nowadays it is just kind of a thing. A performance, it's a rock concert, it's a sporting event, it's a live stunt show, like all mixed into one. And it is kind of cool, I think, to see these performers as just regular people. I sat down with Brian Malonis, super nice guy, and then I watched him wrestle, and he's
fucking monster.
Not so nice.
He's a big meanie, but in real life, he's just he's a super cool dude, and was nice enough to take the time, sit down with us, and before the show, and
click that link on the YouTube page or the SoundCloud page or whatever that says interviews, and check out that interview with Brian Malonis.
It was at Chaotic Wrestling. I didn't mention that in the interview, but it was at Chaotic Wrestling in Hanover,
You also didn't mention the name of the show in the interview, so I'm mentioning it now. Blade Job.
The Blade Job.
TheBladeJob.com.
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 BJ.com.
But the other thing that is kind of going through my head about this potentially being one of the greatest, or one of the best, or a rise in professional wrestling right now, is just the sheer talent that we're seeing. Go back to the mid-90s, the late 90s, and it was still a time when the industry was run by the big men, big, buff, sometimes roided out dudes who were just like, they would go in, couple suplexes, maybe a DDT, a clothesline here and there. Match was over. Now we're seeing these technicians. And I'm not saying we didn't have technicians. We had Dean Malenko. We had
Bret fucking Hart.
Yeah, Bret Hart.
Bret Hart was
they were
pretty good.
far and few in between.
They were, because they were more focused. Obviously in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, we started seeing the rise of the smaller guy with Shawn Michaels, who's still not a small guy. He's tall. He's big.
He's still like 6'1", but
Yeah.
and like Jericho was a small guy.
Jericho was never used because he was a cruiserweight. And
but
no
at the
one
same
can
time,
see the air quotes that I'm doing.
But they're there.
He
Trust me,
he
they're
went
there.
from being a cruiserweight in WCW to being one of, if not the greatest of all time.
He's up there. Despite what a Sparkle Crotch says, he might not be the greatest, but he is easily one of them.
But now we're seeing, in the past 10 years, I would still say that some of the best wrestlers and the most over in at least WWE were CM Punk and Daniel Bryan.
Yep.
They took what Vince perceived as the small guys who shouldn't be in the main event, and they shoved it right up his ass, and they gave us...
Neither of them are over 200 pounds, right? Punk
might be like
around
210.
there, but yeah, I don't.
He's like 5'11". D-Bry's only like, or D-Bry's 5'11". I think Punk might be 6 feet, but he's not big. He's not super buff. He's just a dude who could fucking move. But now we look at the indies, and we've got how tall is Jonathan Gresham? Like
he's like my height. He's like 5'6".
5'6", maybe 5'7". And
John Silver's like that. JT Dunn's, they might be a little bit taller, but yeah, 5.5, give or take.
They're not the big guys,
but they are
yesteryear.
Some of the best professional wrestlers on the planet.
Right.
I still think back.
Jonathan Gresham against Brian Cage.
Yeah,
that was a great match.
That was amazing.
American Round of 17. They, I saw that on the card leading up to it, and it was like, he's gonna get his ass kicked. But just watching that match, and I've watched it a couple times since, and it's believable that Jonathan Gresham. But
spoiler alert, man,
dude. What if no one had? Nah, it's their fault.
Tough.
We'll fix that in post.
We'll
get it in post.
We'll maybe a little beep out or something like that.
We'll make sure everybody watches it. But
I can definitely believe that.
I could definitely believe that Jonathan Gresham. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody, but it's awesome to see. And another thing that I love about this era in wrestling is that there are smaller promotions that are actually taking care of guys, where guys can start, they can make more of a living than they could before. Not in the WWE. There's guys that, there's promotions that will pay them more than they used to get paid, and that's bringing the quality of the matches that guys want to show the best that they can do, so they can, make a living.
There's also a fantastic, community with these wrestlers and these wrestling fans these days. I remember, it just happened, but recently, Kevin Quinn, who is a referee up here in New England, suffered some medical problems. He incurred.
Didn't have a heart attack, but it was
no.
something.
It was. I think it was something. I think it was heat related exhaustion or something like that. He ended up in the hospital. He ended up needing some medical stuff done, and that shit cost money. And I think it was Dijak who said, you know what, go fund me. We need some money to help up. This is our brother. This is a guy who travels with us. This is a guy who helps us run our matches. This is a dude who bleeds for this business. And within like a day or two, his medical expenses were paid.
Yeah.
Because this community I can't speak for the South. I can't speak for the Midwest or the West. I can't speak for the Chicago scene. I can't speak for Canada. But God damn it, I'm proud of the New England wrestling scene, the New England wrestling family, because I've never felt more included before I really stepped into the independent scene of professional wrestling over the past couple of years on a regular basis, seeing the same people at every show, seeing the same wrestlers at every show, seeing these guys and these girls and these men and these women doing what they do. And, there's no, people aren't talking legit shit about each other. I mean, they might be, but they're not doing it out in public. People are going there. They're enjoying professional wrestling.
Right.
And to me, that's what is putting us into one of the best eras, because it's a community now. I don't know about you guys. I'll go somewhere, whether I start a new job or a new person starts at my job, or I go to a party where I don't necessarily know a lot of people, or I go to a bar where I don't know everyone, and you hear someone talking about wrestling, and you instantly know that you can have a conversation with that person. Because for a long time, we were the pariahs. It was like, oh, we don't talk about wrestling anymore. Like, it's not cool anymore. Now, you find those wrestling fans, you don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. You're like, fuck yeah, let's talk about some wrestling. And then you get that one asshole who comes over, oh, you guys talking about wrestling? You know it's fake, right?
Did you know it's fake?
Yeah. And, oh my God, did you know that Jack Bauer didn't actually save Los Angeles from a nuclear attack?
You shut your mouth.
That is a TV show, apparently.
Spoiler alert.
I know.
It's all right. Maybe Los Angeles will die another way.
Whatever.
Just fall into the ocean. But yeah, no. I mean, final thought. Yes, I think we are in
the midst
of what could become the greatest time to be a professional wrestling fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
As of right now, I still feel Attitude Era Monday Night Wars is 1A. This might be 1B, but I am having a ball watching wrestling now, keeping up, up to date with wrestling all over the world, and including wrestling right here in my own nook of the world, which is New England. I own it.